When we talk of flood control, we think about infrastructure, but this is not enough anymore. Forest covers and more wetlands are critical to absorb the increasing amount of rainfall due to climate change. Hi, I'm Iya Gozum and you're watching Rappler Talk. Joining us today is Ann Dumaliang, co-founder of Masungi Georeserve Foundation. Thanks for joining us, Ann.
Thanks for having me, Iya.
Thank you. So, Masungi has long been calling for the protection of Upper Marikina Watershed, especially during the habagat season or whenever, Metro Manila experiences massive flooding. How does it feel now to have the national government and the president himself focus on flood mitigation as a governance issue?
It's been a long time coming. It should have happened a long time ago. And it's wonderful that there's such an attention put onto it now that spans all areas of government and even the president doing all of these audits and checks on the ground and on the field. Because these are really, how do I put it? Everyone knows that it's happening, but it's just not something that's like talked about or addressed.
Right. I think if we're going to nitpick, this crackdown on corruption concerns gray infrastructure, ripraps, dams, but recently you wrote an opinion piece that also tackles green infrastructure, diba? You wrote this opinion piece about the need for an independent commission to oversee flood control efforts and watershed protection. Can you talk more about this piece? Why do you think this is a role that the DNR can't assume?
Well, I called particularly for an independent commission when it comes to the entire flood control system.
Yeah.
Not just when it comes to gray infrastructure, but also including the green infrastructure. Because experience in Masungi tells us that the agency that's supposed to be doing this will always have a difficult time policing itself. Right? And similarly, when we talk about these flood control projects, you can't expect the beneficiaries and the funders to be able to police themselves, right? And so you need an independent body to be able to cover that with enforcement capability and with consent and support from no less than the highest office in government to make that happen. And that's really an independent commission that will see that everything is working together, coordinating things from different agencies, having the independence and the power to audit and make sure everything's flowing responsibly. And additionally, to be honest, that's separate from the usual day-to-day of those departments, diba? Because if you are involved in how a certain project materialized, say for instance, you're talking about a land grabbing activity that's going to be turned into a big development later on. If you're the one who gave the permit, or your peers are the ones who gave the permit, it's very unlikely that you will push on with the audit. Or at least there are certain political interferences that would make it more difficult for you to do that, diba? And you're talking about these things, it's not just one office. Say for instance, land grabbing, right? That involves the lowest parts of the barangay to different levels of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources to make it happen. And I think the main determining factor here for me is why an independent commission right now is just the urgency of the climate crisis, diba? We're talking about 2030 being an important year for cutting emissions and pursuing climate targets. That means that a substantial part of what we could do happens within this administration up until 2028. And there's simply no time for departmental reforms. We know it's the ideal mechanism for the entire department to be reformed and to, pursue conservation over extractives in these areas. But the reality is we're not yet there. So what do? Do we leave it at that? Or do we try to do something about it? Right? I say we do something about it.
I think this contradiction within the DNR is also acknowledged by the DNR itself. Like they're pushing for, yung difference lang is they're not pushing for an independent commission as you were talking about, but they're pushing for like a bureau.
That's right, an enforcement bureau.
Them. Yeah, that's
an enforcement
What do you think
bureau.
About that?
For conservationists and for us, from our experience, the NIPAS law already provides for certain enforcement mechanisms. The way DNR handles a multi-stakeholder approach now, coordinating with the police and the military and all of these, should be able to cover that already.
Yeah.
For us, you don't need a new bureau to make that happen.
Or one that's under DNR.
Under DNR, diba? Kasi even in the little things that are very compelling already to pursue enforcement, they're not able to do it, right? So, do you understand? Parang,
yeah.
So it's something else. It's something else.
We
right?
talk about enforcement.
Kasi you already have parang a task force. We've seen that in Masungi. Sometimes they've already gathered like a task force to make things happen, and yet it doesn't happen. Right? So you're saying now you're gonna have a bureau, but merong elephant in the room that stops them from making it happen, eh? Yeah. Diba? So what you need isn't an
What's really
independent
gonna happen
bureau.
is they're gonna police themselves.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
They have a bureau inside.
Right? You will. So how does that work out? And it's not entirely DNR's fault. It's just that it has that dual mandate.
Yeah.
So for instance, you're the regional director.
And other countries separate you.
Separate. You have an Environment Protection Agency, for instance, in the United States.
Right.
Right? And then the use is a different agency altogether.
Yeah.
Right? We do have our parks, but it's still under the same umbrella, so it couldn't move. Right? More often than not, what the Biodiversity or the Parks Bureau just ends up getting drowned in the use discussion even before it reaches the public. I think it deserves the space to be able to, to have government itself, an entire department or entire commission defend that position.
Do you think this focus now on corrupt contractors and lawmakers in Congress will also shine light on quarry operators, illegal loggers, and speculators in watershed areas? Or at least, do you hope that?
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
And the article I wrote was auditing the builders and the breakers.
Yeah.
Because these things, the protection of our watersheds and the quality of gray infrastructure, they really form the backbone of our disaster resilience nationally. And therefore, everything as well that destroys our watershed areas deserve the same level of attention, of auditing and policing, of quality controls, and transparency. No? So I hope it sheds light on that too. And there's already a lot spent on reforestation, but it doesn't matter if while you're restoring, you're still reaching a net negative because destruction is happening at the same pace.
Yeah.
Diba?
It's funny because we talk about saving the watershed and we talk about policing and enforcement, all hard images, right? But when people say or advocate for watershed protection, yung unang image na pumapasok sa utak natin, tree planting, soft images like that. But you've been in conservation for a considerable time. You've been experimenting with new solutions in Masungi Georeserve. Can you walk us through what it actually entails to manage and protect large forest covers?
What does it take?
Yeah.
Well, first and foremost, you need to have the
Guts.
capacity, the guts. Yes, but the capacity to do it. May that be financing or the human resources. And when you're talking about managing large swaths of land, it's not about having a scientist or a forester or a team of that. It's literally land management. Yeah. You need engineers, you need surveyors, you need lawyers protecting your team, you need boots on the ground. It's a whole land management group, yes, that you need to have. And you need to have the capability, the expertise to make that happen. Diba? So in Masungi, I honestly thought that once we have all of those in place, we're in a good place. Yeah, we have the trails, you have a way to finance your structure, you have the people to make it happen.
It's a popular tourist site, right?
Yeah, so you have, exactly. So you'd think that it could work out, no? But experience tells us that that's not enough, right? It helps to have a wider community of support around it that understand why it needs to be protected. But on top of that, it's also such a highly political space.
Yeah.
The moment you go into enforcement, the moment you go into checks and balances that you eventually end up performing for government.
At the end of the day, you're still managing land. And in the Philippines, land is political.
Land is so
it's
fraught.
so
land
political.
is so dangerous. It's so conflicted.
Yeah.
Diba? So, so it's more difficult than it seems. Now, a lot of attention has been put in reforestation, but you ask anyone who has taken reforestation seriously, and they will tell you they're having a hard time finding land to reforest. Because almost everything has been formally or informally set aside for a different purpose or person.
Yeah.
Right? So there's nothing to reforest.
Yeah.
You'd be given the opportunity to plant trees in a certain area, maybe for 5 years, and then what happens? Yeah. Because the land is allocated for something else, may that be legally or under the wraps or under the table, it just disappears. So it doesn't get to deliver the ecosystem services it was designed to deliver.
So you're saying na there's a lack of foresight or innovative long-term solutions in how we conserve our land.
Definitely.
Kung, usually, ano yan, di ba? MOA contracts for tree planting, reforestation for like how many years lang.
Correct.
But reforestation doesn't work that way.
Right. So this is exactly why why Masungi was prototype. And why we're pushing for conservation agreements that's centered on conservation and reforestation more than the use of land, right? Because that's exactly what we need. And what you're seeing now is there are actually a lot of memorandum of agreements for reforestation. They last for 3 years, 5 years.
Yeah.
Where does that get you? For example, we have a well-known organization doing reforestation for a couple of hectares right next to Masungi. They do it so well. Survival rates are so high. Galing. Tamang species. Respect talaga, diba? But they were gone after 5 years. And one hot summer season, someone decided to light up an adjacent area because there's no one maintaining the site. Everything was burnt down. Just like that, because no one was maintaining it. There are no boots on the ground. And enforcement wasn't happening against the groups that were illegally claiming land. And that happens year on year, you know. Fires, not naturally caused, but done, people say for agriculture, from our experience, done so people could monitor the land that they want to grab.
It's very uncertain for conservationists. You don't know how long you'll last. Right?
That's right. So that is very important. That we all know reforestation, when done right, restoration when done right, takes a very long time. Good tropical restoration could set you back a century to make it happen. So the foresight and the long-term commitment is very important.
Is the key word here.
Yes, and for you to have groups take part in that, syempre, you need to be able to show that you would be supported for that period in time, diba? And you need to be able to help mitigate the risks associated with that, particularly when you're dealing with illegal groups that you will naturally confront on the ground. So in countries, say, like Costa Rica, they have actually empowered landowners, and that's how they counter deforestation in Costa Rica. And part of the benefits, if you do enter into an agreement with government, is help when it comes to enforcement and against land grabbing in particular. So that's the private-public cooperation that made it work. In addition to ecosystem services, respecting the ecosystem services of their forests and watersheds, in addition to using alternative economies like ecotourism and agroforestry. So all of that is how they made that happen. And so we have these case practices that we can learn from. Right?
In other countries, not here. Not here. This is not
then
something
you need
that
to adjust it for our
right?
political situation. Again, with the urgency that it requires, right? Which is why I keep on saying those commissions are so important. We already have the Climate Change Commission, right? And one of the great things about the Climate Change Commission is it focuses on just that.
ideally, no conflict of interest when it comes to execution from your Department of Environment and Natural
It's
Resources.
under OP, so...
Yeah, it's under the Office of the President. The same thing for the Commission on Indigenous People. In President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo's time, what helped us surface a lot of the information around land grabbing was the fact that she had a national task force against land speculation, land grabbing. Diba? So these are the things that I think this administration can champion. We already know how much we're losing because of corruption in these flood control projects. We also know how important it is that these flood control projects work. It should be worthy of the president's time. Yeah, it should be a priority of the administration.
So recently, Masungi put forward 3 scenarios for the Upper Marikina Watershed. You were referring to a 2017 study. So these scenarios differ in the amount of forest cover na closed sa public, land use management. So can you elaborate more on this? Ano yung scenario na nakikita mo for, or you hope, for Upper Marikina Watershed? And of course, do private entities like Masungi have a role in these scenarios?
Okay, so the study that we posted online is based on a study, a very elaborate study conducted by the World Bank together with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. And it studies 3 important watersheds, including the Upper Marikina Watershed, particularly looking into the ecosystem services that it provides and the different scenarios that are present so that you could, optimize those ecosystem services and value to the economy. So what the studies, again, show and work with is that currently we have a forest cover of just about 23-25%, including your open and closed forest cover, right? And the different scenarios that were provided actually goes from your urban no forest cover setting, one that is more agriculture focused, one that is conservation focused, and another that is more particular on a forested setting. So urban, no cover, konti lang yung forest cover mo doon. Mostly it means that you've converted it to use a built setup. And it looks like, honestly, that's where we're headed towards. No? So the study hopes that we are on track towards an agricultural setting.
But we're not.
But we're not. We're not getting close to that. The agricultural setting assumes that the National Greening Program worked out.
Okay.
And that means that you have currently a forest cover of about 50%, 49-50%. So,
but you're way below that.
Yeah, we are way below that. And that's supposed to be the target by 2030, right? In 5 years' time.
My God, 5 years' time.
Yeah. So this one focuses more on more agricultural uses. I believe keeping tenured and untenured migrants within the watershed. But also working with the assumption, supposedly, that there is a no migration policy already for these watersheds. Meaning, kung ano yung dami ng tao na nandun, that's the assumption that we're working with, no? Which we also know isn't happening. Because even just in the Masungi's reforestation site, the in-migration is very strong, diba? Your conservation setting assumes a 70% forest cover. And this is more focused on sustainable forest use.
Okay. What does that entail?
More or less parang less than your agricultural mode. And also that you focus more, I believe, on your tenured migrants, meaning there are certain untenured migrants that you will have to relocate to a different area.
Okay.
72% is high. And then the other one, the completely forested one, means that you basically keep the forest cover at about 90%.
Yeah.
So that's optimal when it comes to ecosystem services. But at the same time, that also means larger mobilization for the removal of tenured migrants, enforcement, converting certain areas for forest lands instead of multiple use zones, etc.
When you talk about ecosystem services, what does this mean for Metro Manila residents?
For Metro Manila residents?
In the case of Upper Marikina Watershed.
Yeah, so when you talk about ecosystem services of the Upper Marikina, ang dami actually, very real. So for instance, if you talk about siltation control capabilities, when you have a forested Upper Marikina, it's equivalent to the siltation control capability of 10,500 dams, about that much. So it's huge. And dams aren't cheap. They're about, check dams are about 500,000 pesos, which leads us to a cost of about 5 billion pesos just to set those up. And then you're not yet accounting in the maintenance, the maintenance costs annually, which in that study was pegged at about 900 million pesos annually. And again, these are gray infrastructure. They depreciate through time. And the depreciation there is at 8 years.
Yeah.
That's the lifespan that they give it. So what happens then is you have all of these big spendings when reforestation is much cheaper. It's pegged at 20,000 pesos per hectare to make it effective. And now you have so many people who want to finance it without even costing government. Diba? And that only gets better through time. You don't have the same annual costs and depreciation that you're working with. So that's the replacement cost of the forest when it comes to siltation control.
I think that's a really important point made in this study, right? That reforestation is the low-cost alternative to prevent soil erosion compared to this gray infrastructure na ngayon ay yung focus na crackdown of corruption ng national government, right?
Yeah. But I think what people not realize is that these are really all interconnected, right? When you make, when more silt flows from your watershed areas, your upper areas, going downstream to your rivers and your bays, it also affects your gray infrastructure because it's forced to handle more every year as it gets worse than it was initially designed for.
Yeah.
So in that sense, when you sabotage your green infrastructure, you're also sabotaging your gray infrastructure.
Right. But to be clear,
and your assumptions end up becoming irrelevant, diba?
Right.
Their initial assumptions end up
and
not
you need
working.
to build more.
Yeah, then you end up needing to build more. Then you're in this very ineffective cycle.
Basically, what happens is environmental destruction continues. Then you just build more and more to compensate for it.
Yeah.
But you're really not being proactive.
Yeah,
with the problem.
I really encourage everyone to read that study because it's very specific. Even when it comes to the amount of silt that flows down to Manila Bay, to Laguna de Bay, it's at about 4 million tons annually if you do not handle your watershed protection properly.
Would you say, Anne, there is a deficiency in innovative solutions when it comes to how the state currently manages and reforests watershed areas now, based on your experience? And what do you think stops the bureaucracy from exploring these options?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
But do you think there is a deficiency in innovative solutions when it comes to conserving our protected areas, in how our state manages and reforests watershed areas? And ano yung nakikita mong reasons? Kaya, what's stopping the bureaucracy from exploring these solutions na earlier you were talking about, the case studies na nire-refer mo from other countries? It's a big question, I know.
It's a big question and there are so many answers. But my mind, since we're talking about the flood control, my mind's gravitating towards you earn more with the gray infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, I've been hearing that from so many other sources.
Sorry, but that's the truth. I mean, you fix your green infrastructure na according to Mayor Magalong and widely known, you get a lot of pocketed money from. Magkaiba eh. So sometimes people would prefer, they gravitate towards the gray infrastructure and they gravitate towards development, even where there shouldn't be any development. Because when you take care of your forest, the ecosystem services are huge. But yeah, it's not flashy. It's cost efficient. So there's less to earn there, even if there's even if it's also substantial if you want to do it right. Diba? So my mind does gravitate towards that. Added to the fact that, traditionally, even the DNR and a lot of these areas in the Upper Marikina, they're traditionally really used for extractive purposes. Diba? If you look at the road going to Masungi, you'll see that a lot of the mountains that were there before really have turned into gravel. Left and right, you'd have different quarries and leveled out subdivision. That's just how rocks were seen in the past, right? And if you keep the wheel going, that's just how they treat it. So because of that, it's given more priority over, these innovations that are more cost-effective, more cost-efficient. And even if you do try to have, the reforestation projects, kakatalo naman when it comes to the quality of maintenance and the quality of work. And a lot of indigenous people have told me about this. When the National Greening Program happened, the ones that could really do it so well, and actually indigenous people, you equip them, you give them capacity building. They know the right species, they're there on the ground, on the field, they could take care of it. But instead, lumabas dun yung mga ghost people's organizations who tried to benefit from that financing and then wouldn't even be planting the right kind of trees on the ground and aren't even there to protect those trees. Diba? So, in effect, parang siyang ghost project like what you're having with the flood control projects, or the success rate is so low. And ang mahirap doon is, even when it comes to transparency, audits, and accountability, it doesn't work out because the same people financing it, leading the project is also your auditor.
Thus, your opinion piece.
Thus, your opinion
Advocating
piece.
for an independent commission.
Yeah.
We're circling back.
Yeah.
But, and before this interview ends...
And sorry, the enforcement bit talaga. The enforcement bit is one of the bigger issues around simply why it's so difficult to make it work. Yeah. Right now, we're so dependent on non-government organizations for checks and balances. But best case scenario is, even within government, there's a strong push to protect these resources, especially given what we now know, right? But instead, you need, and I'm not complaining, it's good that the private sector is involved, but you need NGOs from Mount Banahaw, from Panay, indigenous people, to sound the alarm when something happens at the front lines, diba? When supposedly those are checks that are already built into government. And it's even worse because for your whistleblowers, for your frontliners, a lot of them instead are red tagged. They're not given the support that they need to even keep on doing that for government, for the Philippines, right? So ang hirap even for NGOs who have so much heart in doing it, just because the support isn't there. Masungi had support for a good amount of time, but you saw what happened. In the blink of an eye, biglang, diba? I mean, you put in so much work for whistleblowing and checks and balances. And when you see that this police officer occupied this land, this past DNR official is still there occupying a dam that shouldn't be his resort, right? But, without the right structure, it's what it is. It's vulnerable to administrative changes without a strong leadership at the helm of the DNR. You're left to the whims of the political winds, diba?
Speaking of what happened, Anne, before I let you go, I just want to ask kung meron ng update. Since the government has given notice to Masungi to leave the area, are you currently in talks? Are you in negotiations with the agency? Anong update?
Wala pang update sa ngayon. So if you recall...
but to be clear, Masungi is still there.
Masungi is
Staff,
still there.
The rangers.
That's right. So we're still there. We're still alive. We're still running. Please do come and visit us. So what's happening now is, if you recall, when the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearing happened, they looked into, what allowed for these decisions from DNR. In-explore rin, to be honest, yung mga iba't ibang land claims over the area that aren't reflected on the map, but is there, diba? So that's where it was headed. But the committee also asked, and basically where the entire discussion closes, is that it's open for a motion for reconsideration.
Okay.
So that's what the DNR also said, and we've given our motion for reconsideration. It's now with the office of the new DNR secretary. So since then, we haven't had the opportunity to meet up with him yet and to reconcile things, but we're hopeful that there's this also renewed chance to really collaborate on watershed protection, given what we now know about, how fraught it is and how much support is needed to make it happen.
To be clear, visitors can still go to Masungi.
Yeah, they can still go to Masungi. A lot of people think it's not, but it still is.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Ann. If you're just tuning in, we've been talking with Ann Dumaliang of Masungi Georeserve on saving Upper Marikina Watershed and protecting cities from flooding. To follow Rappler's updates on climate and environment, check out the Environment and Science channel or the Livable Cities channel of the Rappler Communities app. Again, I'm Iya Gozum, and this is Rappler Talk.